your shoulder makes your skin crawl. And we only come alive after nightfall. I've been singing in the shadows, slipping through the streets. Roll up right beside you, all right to my feet. Something's right behind you, hope that it's not me. Something's right behind you.
We got Diabetic Daddy in here, baby, showcasing his Toppin 64 list. Look at this beautiful, man. It's sick. It's sick.
Then another verse dragon. Yeah, no, got top 64 at Philly, playing Despia. It was a good event. Kind of sucks that a list got dropped midway through. By midway, I mean round 2. But other than that, the event was great. And yeah, I played this deck. It was fun. Felt good. So into it. 3 Valibur.
Alley, baby.
Yeah, Alley. Yeah, Alley, baby. And then 1 Tragedy. The only Despia guys you play. Adlib's like the only other one that you used to play, but now that we've gotten Quim, you don't really need it.
Kind of serves the same purpose.
Yeah. Quim can bring back the Mirror Jade, which was all like Adlib ever did anyway, and it's just better. And then 3 Fallen Valbez, and then his hose. You have 2 Ecclesia, 1 Quim, 1 Kit, 1 Macarier, and 1 Albion. So you got to play 3 of this card just because before the weekend, Diabolos could just like randomly banish it, which happened once in the event. His first mill, he Rise Hearted me, hit 2 fusions and my Macarier face down. And I was like, well, that's rough because I can't break the board. And then he Diabolos me and hit 2 Albaz. So I played the whole game with 1 fusion, 1 Albaz.
Oh, my lord.
Yeah, that was round 2, I want to say, so it was unlucky. But yeah, so you have to play 3 of these, or you did. Now we can probably go down to 2. 2 of this. This is what I cut the ad lib for. I just felt like seeing this card was more impactful than seeing a brick. This card's crazy. She just like facilitates you bringing back Mirror Jade. There's a lot of cool plays you can do with her now. She's also a Despian, so I guess technically she is searchable off the same thing, opening and all that. 1 Kit just for like in-phase stuff that you'll see later on. Card can also is like a pseudo starter. It's like Alibur Light. So 1 Macarier, card's crazy. It can also now be brought back off Quim. A lot of people don't know you can use the effect from the field.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
What?
And then 1 Albion.
Love that free draw.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Actually, the most impactful card summon, or like the most impactful effect of this was the summon effect. I discarded a Retribution because all day I just drew that card. That card was like glued to my hand. That Macarier, all day I just drew both of them. So one game I actually pitched the Retribution from hand to summon this card back, and it's Fallen of Albaz on field. So with this, you can just fusion, make like Mirror or Albion or anything you want from that point.
What fusion you need.
Yep. And then we have the small bestial package, just the only 2 mandatories, Libellion and Sarnir. Libellion just because this is what you're sending off Brand Fusion, and then Sarnir because like if you draw it, it's not terrible, you can discard it. Funny enough, round 1, I had to tribute summon a D-Shifter over this card, going second. That way I could send Branded Fusion. I normal summoned D-Shifter and won the game. It was crazy.
God, what the hell? Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah, and then what everyone thinks is the MVP of the deck, Gimmick Puppet. Funny enough, I only Gimmick Puppeted like 2 people. 3 people maybe all weekend. I was getting like triple hand trapped all the time. I played Despia on hard mode, I guess. But every time I summoned it, it was just
this man took the Dark Souls challenge.
Literally, I was like, but every time you summon it, it's just an auto win. Like they just can't play around it. And then the only defensive like hand trap was Nib. So this was Droll up until probably the week before the event. And then what we found out is against Super Heavy, you would Droll them, and then they would just make Baguska, and then you would still lose because you can't out Baguska. You would like Droll Kashtira, they would still, like, they still have Birth. They could still, under the right hand, like lock
Still
enough.
through,
Yeah, they could lock enough to where it's like you can't really effectively out the board. So it was like, I just wanted this to guarantee that like it goes through. It stops the board lock, and again, Super Heavy, you can put the token in the middle zone, so they could never add like Spell Canceller off of Genius because they could never summon to 2 zones, and that was what I was really scared of. I know a lot of people moved off of it before the event. I never got Spell Canceller, but it was there, So like the fact that you can prevent yourself from getting like FTK'd is important.
Spellcat's a good one.
Yeah. It also trades with Nib also trades with like Baron and stuff too. So or Regulus, which is fine. And then that was it for the monsters. I'm pretty sure it's 19. So. And then
40 card, right?
41. Yeah. I bumped. I'll explain. The 41st card was a spell card, and I'll explain to it, and then it kind of makes sense when I get to it. But 3 Brand Diffusion. Anytime this card resolved, I won the game. It's pretty self-explanatory. 3 Branded Opening. There's a lot of like weird game states this weekend, like I said, because I got hand trapped a bunch, to where like I was like, I added this over this in some game states. Even if I didn't have this, because if I got ashed, I would just like have lost the game. I have nothing. So like you add this, they'll never ash it because they expect you to Brand Diffusion afterwards.
They always hold it for the Brand Diffusion.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a few times where I would just like add this instead, summon Quim out, and then like let them play. Because Quim just brings back the Albaz, and then you make like basically guarantee yourself a fusion on their turn. Weird scenarios, but this card's crazy now with Quim. I'm surprised that they didn't hit this on the list. I thought this was our bet to go to 1, but they didn't.
Open go insane, especially with Quim now.
Yeah, with Quim, it's like so good. And then the 1-ofs, you have 1 Branded in red, 1 High Spirits, and then 1 Lost. All of these cards are equally as crazy. This card, if you resolve this in the draw phase, like it's almost as good as like resolving a Branded Fusion. You get to add Ecclesia.
So many pluses.
Yeah, you get Send Albion. It's so good. It also adds itself back at the end of it, like the next turn. So it's just always a card to pitch. Very strong. I wish we could play more of it just because that's how impactful it was. But like with cash in the format, it was like Arise Heart makes this card very irrelevant.
Yeah.
So that's why it was just 1, and it's also searchable. So, but that's it for the branded spells. And then for like the next set, we went. This was a little, so like it's weird because like this is where my lift differs from Clifton's. I went more towards like an OCG route, which is weird, but I'll explain the theory afterwards. So it was 2 Fusion Deployment, 2 Nadir Servant, 2 Thrust, and then so I played 2 of each of them. So my theory was they're all once per turns, and the way that this deck loses, because like their power spells, as long as I don't get flooded out, are insane. Like they can play into most boards as long as like outside of like the spell canceller and like all that stuff.
Stuff that you can't play.
Yeah, but if you draw 2 of these cards, they're only hard once per turn, so you can never activate them. So I went for the route of 2, 2, and 2. That way I had a higher chance of seeing each of them. And then this card is just basically this card, or Branded Fusion.
Right.
So it's like this card was very good. And it also allowed me to play my 41st card, which was 1 talent. There was like a lot of the time where if you have Branded Fusion and they like, because Gamma I expected to be popular. So like a lot of people will Gamma Aliber because they have to, because if you add Lost Gamma, you can never activate it. So if they Gamma you, this card is just insane because it just says Aliber never got Gammaed. And so if you like add Brand Diffusion if you don't have it, but if you do have it, you just add this and then you get to rip the ash. And then
basically guarantees your fusion.
Yeah, guarantees fusion goes through if you have it. And then 1 called back just because it's a god card. This plus ash, or this plus Brand
Did you draw it and resolve it?
I drew it a couple of times, but every time I drew it, I didn't have Brand Diffusion. Yeah, I didn't resolve this once. Or I take that back. I resolved it once. I set it, and it was against Super Heavy. He linked off Soul Piercer, and I called by the Soul Piercer. Yep. It was pretty good then. And then, so the other difference in my list is my other defensive was Super Poly. This card went crazy. Yes. So the last round of Swiss actually played against a Super Heavy guy who was doing the puppet lock. And he like does like I have no hand trap. This is my only interruption. And he goes full board. He ends on Baron, scales 1 card in hand, Gimmick Puppet guy, and Albion. And then like I had this card in hand, so I just with draw phase, like with player priority, I just slammed this and made Stepelia. Because the Albion's the fusion and the Gimmick Puppet is a dark. So it just ate his whole board and outed his Baron interruption. That game was super wild though, because I didn't have fusion in hand, and he still had 1 card and he discarded Droll. So like I knew he had Ash because you wouldn't discard a hand trap unless you had a more high impact hand trap. So like I had like a cool line where I had to like bait his Baron. I talents, ripped the Ash, and then I thrust added Brand Diffusion. And
oh my lord!
Yeah. That was the last round of Swiss too, like on the bubble to get in. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, this card was crazy all day. It allows you to play around like interruptions too. Like they would like set cards to try to interact with like your Albion or something, like imperm your Albion or something, and you could just chain this, get it off the board so it resolves. It was very, very solid. I would definitely play it, especially going into next format now.
That's very simple. It's a must.
Oh yeah. And then the traps, Retribution, Expulsion. I drew these way too many today, way too much that day. Like I said, I only gimmick puppeted like 3 people. Didn't resolve this very much, but when I did, I won the game. And then this card,
stay in your hand.
yeah, it stayed in my hand, but it was fine. Like I added a bunch of stuff back. There's like some really cool brain diffusion lines that I did, but like to get to it to where I would have to dump it and like get this out of my hand. But these are must. The field effect did come up a few times too, so it's fine.
That's hard. I do like that.
Yeah, no, this card's really good. But yeah, 41 card main deck, and then onto the extra, we got the 2 Big Daddy Jades, 2 Albions. These are the only doubles in the extra deck. These are the only ones that like you really have to have double. The only ones that ever come up more than once. Then you have Lubellion. This card is crazy. This is what most cash players decided to rip though. And depending on what they banish face down, typically it doesn't matter. But like I said, that one game against the cash player where I only had 1 Albaz, 1 Fusion, he ripped this as well without seeing what he ripped, and it was actually the correct play because I could just only resolve 1 Brain Diffusion ever. And it was like, but yeah.
Super tough.
Yeah, this card, it's pretty cool. It's standard. And then on for the 1-ofs, so it was Renbrum, Albion, Sprint, and then I played Alba Lenatus. Instead of the Tri-Brigade one. So there was a spike in popularity for dragons, and I was worried that, seeing, or like the Bestial hand trap deck, that was also like pretty popular.
Control,
the week before, like going into it. So I wanted something like to where if I did end up playing any of those, like Albat, like this just outs their whole board. I didn't play a single dragon, so this card didn't come up that way. The other cool part about this card though is it makes this card Pot of Avarice Light for your deck. You can summon this card, make this guy by shuffling back him and both of these back into the extra deck, and this if you go through it. So like just resets your extra deck a lot of the time.
Yeah, because it's 1+ dragons.
Yeah, it's 1+, so you can just make it a bunch. Like I said, that never came up. The most relevant part is like it just allows you to add normal fusion or polymerization card. So there was a lot of times where I would send this and then add fusion deployment because I was gonna get, like I had fusion already live. So it would just allow me to guarantee that I got to play through anything. This card's crazy, can't be targeted. I didn't make it very often, but when I did, it was just a auto win. This card is typically the card you're sending off of Mirror Jade into like most matchups now, especially if you have like an Albaz engraved because of Quim. It just makes it like a 2-layered interruption. So that was good. And then it's because of this card. Like nobody really respects it, but like this card is just any monster, effect monster, special summoned. So it makes Albaz just an interruption for any card that's basically
send you summon it. You get suck up a monster, summon that. Did the column play ever come up at all?
So there was one time where it would have that I hard summoned it, and then the guy knew what it did though, so he placed the birth in its column. So I couldn't move it to pop it, which was like he played around it. But if he didn't, then yes, this card would have won me that game 100%. I won that game anyway, but that was the only time. Also, like this is the only one in my extra deck that I can send that summons Albaz on the end of the turn. Whereas Clifton had the Tri-Brigade guy, which also could do that, but Alba can't. So there'd be some times where I would send it just to get the Albaz on field.
Yeah.
And then the mandatory Grain Granule. This card's crazy. Just like this helps you play around Nib with the expulsion stuff too. Sending like random cards like Saranir.
Anything you need to get from the grave.
Yeah, this card
any
just
missing pieces or anything like that.
So good. And then on for the other extra deck stuff, it was Quartus. Summon off Grain Granule most of the time, but Super Poly, like you can also hard summon it because everybody plays Lights and Darks.
Yep.
One Stepelia. Like I said, this card, I made this card against the guy who tried to gimmick puppet lock me with Super Heavy, and then I also made this guy Super Poly with a against a Rika guy. So this card's also just still mandatory. Like a lot of the times, like in weird scenarios, you can Ecclesia and make this card like with Mirror Jade, and then Quinn bring back the Mirror Jade. So it's like Just so good.
Like 2 other interruptions on top of it.
Yep.
Moving a monster.
Guardian Chimera. Made it twice. Got ashed one time on my opponent's turn. Felt bad. But still, it's pretty good. The only way we can really clear through back row decks, unfortunately. And then because I played Super Poly, I played Mud Dragon. This was the card I chose. I didn't play Garura, just Mud Dragon. So good.
Do you think so if you had a choice between Mud Dragon and Garura, is this better?
Yeah, it's always this because it beats the cash board because they summon Diabolos and Arise Heart. And
They're both dark one's
machine,
one's psychic.
Yeah. And then and against Super Heavy, it actually came in because a lot of them played Fenrir. So they would go like Fenrir plus any, like they would normal summon any of them, and then you could just Super Poly it there and eat them. And then like I actually did that in one of my matches. He summoned Fenrir, summoned Wagon, and then entered battle phase. And I just Super Poly'd both of his guys and made this. And then he was like, oh. And it just like caught him off guard. So yeah.
I just lost 2 monsters.
Yeah, and I just got a Mud Dragon. And then the last card in the extra deck is Lulu. This is just for like Nadir. Technically, I guess you can send it off Grangranol. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. You can send it off Grangranol too. It summons a spellcaster at the end phase. I never summoned this off Grangranol. That never came up, but sending it off Nadir is the main way, and it's pretty strong.
Yeah. Let you get that Cartesia Quim.
Yeah, get you Cartesia Quim at the end phase, which is bonkers. Quim at the end phase is so good. And then on to the side, free draw. So we still felt like we needed to decide this card just because it was so impactful. Honestly, I would say it didn't come up much. Like I never felt like this card did enough into Super Heavy because, like I said, they just go make Baguska, and then you have to draw Albaz Super Poly, or else you still lose to that board. But against Cash, it's okay depending on their hand, but most of the time they still can end through like on an Arise Heart. Which, to be fair, if they end on an Arise Heart for this deck, that's fine. But
yeah, because you can deal with the Arise Heart.
Yeah, Brain Fusion outs that. But yeah, Karakura.
How did this card feel like?
Didn't summon it all day. There's so the way that my matches worked out, it was like most of the time I played a lot of Cash and a lot of Super Heavy, and then I either 2-0'd them, or like against Super Heavy, this card doesn't come in because like they have Regulus, they have Baron and Apo, so it like never does enough. Like you have to draw like a very good hand for it to impact Super Heavy. But it didn't come up, but I would still keep it because like this card does still beat Pearly, which I lost. That was what I lost to into top 64. I didn't. That was the only Pearly player I played that day or all weekend. But like it's good into Pearly. It's good into the cash board if they set up. It's just like Nib 2.0 for them.
You can take 3 monsters from him.
Yeah, and then kill him with it. So in theory, it's still good. I would still play it. I wouldn't take it out for anything, but I didn't summon him. 3 shifter.
Oh my lordy.
Yeah.
Shifty boy.
I'm gonna be honest. The most impactful thing this card did all weekend was I tribute summoned this card over a Sarnir. Yeah.
That's totally crazy.
Yeah. It was to get to Brain Diffusion. Yeah. I was like, this card in theory though is good. It beats Pearly. They go first. You just shifter them and then they can't do anything really. Against Super Heavy, it's essentially the same thing.
As you drawing them, sort of.
Yeah, as you drawing them, they still can like most of the time end on a Baguska. It has a little higher chance of like not, but this card is insane into any rogue deck, which is like why we had it. Like Math Mech, this card just absolutely prevents you from getting circular or fractoral. It was super strong. So
probably die after the Shifty Boy resolves.
Yeah. So it's like there's also like cool plays where if you shifter them, you can like do the gimmick puppet stuff. Because expulsion special, from the banished. And then I played 2 Magnamon. So I only played 2. I had Super Poly, so I was less worried about being puppeted and then like losing because of it, because like I could always set Super Poly and then Super Poly them on their turn.
Yeah.
So I only played 2 of this card because I was respecting another matchup a little bit more. I also expected to see a lot of cash, and this card does nothing into it. And I did play a lot of cash and a lot of super heavy, but this card does nothing into both of those matchups. So the one matchup it came into was Math Mech, and I did draw it game 2. I drew it. I just like hit his Sigma after he sent it from circular, summoned it, got to add Lubellion because I had Saronir in hand, so I got to like dump Lubellion and then get like double Bestial for his turn too. It was wild. So yeah. Now going forward though, this card will probably be bumped up because in the mirror it's very strong, and I didn't play any mirror. So, and then the reason I didn't play 3 is because I decided to play one of this card, Herald of the Abyss. This is because I had Thrust in the deck, so you don't need. So it's like if I ever went into Pearly, I could just Thrust, grab this, and then it outs their Noir. Like I said, unfortunately it didn't come up because in top 64 I didn't win game 1. He won the dice roll, made the thing, killed me. And then game 2, I went first. He like ashed my Brain Diffusion. My hand was real weird. So, but in theory, I like the idea with Thrust. It made sense. And then yep. And then the last card was just the best floodgate that our deck could play, which was Pkwy. Like I said, most of the time, if I like when I won, it was 2-0, but. So it didn't really come up. I didn't flip it once, but in testing, this card was crazy against like Pearly. You flip it, they can't play. They have to have They have to have another level 1. They have to normal summon it, make Lurelist, and then if like this is your only interruption, it doesn't beat them, but it ends them on a Zeus.
Yeah.
And this deck doesn't lose to Zeus because I'm branded. So, but if you have any other interruption, this card can this card basically solos Pearly.
Solos every mono deck is great.
Yeah, and the same with super heavy. Like you just flip this, they have a hard time outing it. So yeah, but yeah, that was
any
the
shout outs or anything?
Shout outs for sure. So all the guys at Locals that helped me test the weeks before, Cliffy. Because
Cliffy, brother, Cliffy, helping them. Come on out.
Yeah, he was, basically the structure for the list was Clifton, and then we just kind of went our own ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like Therian with him all night before. Yeah, other than that.
Good. All right, thank you for your time.
Like a spider on your shoulder makes your skin crawl.